This is a story about our very brief visit to a tiny island in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. We stopped briefly in Yorktown, then in Gloucester Courthouse for dinner. Then we spent the night at the Holiday Inn Express in Kilmarnock. The next morning we drove to Reedville to board our boat. The boat was the Chesapeake Breeze, which we boarded there in Reedville. Here's where we picked up our tickets for the 1.5-hour ride across the Chesapeake Bay. We saw lots of pretty homes of natural wildlife and, of course, the people who built houses right along the river's edge. Our boat had an open upper deck and an enclosed lower deck. After 1.5 hours on the water, we finally arrived at the tiny island of Tangier, 1 mile wide and 5 miles long. "500 people live on the island and make their living with crabs and tourists. It's water everywhere, lots of docks, fishing boats, a few pleasure craft, and a few houses there on the island. Our tour guide told us there are about 4 cars on the island. Most of the motor vehicles on the island are simple golf carts. The moment we stepped off, we were greeted by locals with brochures for local restaurants and with offers to take us on a tour of the island. We took one of those tours, riding around with a lady driving a golf cart. Golf carts are everywhere. As you can see here, much of the island is marshland. We ate at Lorraine's. There's about 3 restaurants on the town and all of 1 tiny grocery store and a few bed and breakfasts. You can rent bicycles. We didn't have time to do that. We'd like to have done it. Here we see some of the houses on the island. And here is the town's new medical center and a cemetery next door. Here is the Methodist church. There's one other church on the island. We saw lots of little gift shops, 3 or 4 of those. And you'll notice that the golf carts are everywhere. They park them on these little raised platforms to keep them away from the high tides. We had only about 2.5 hours on the island, not much time, and then we were back on the boat and heading back across the water again. It's pretty in its own way, worth seeing. Wouldn't want to go back there again, What you see here is exactly what they have. It's rather remote and desolate. They don't get to go off island very often. Our tour guide told us that she leaves the island about 5 times a year. Go off on the boat or a barge to go over to Reidsville or into Maryland. You'll find only about 4 vehicles on the island itself, and those vehicles do not have licenses. But the vehicles that the people do own and license, since they're in Virginia, they carry Virginia plates, but they park them in Crisfield, Maryland. It's people go to Maryland to do most of their shopping because it's a much faster overland drive from Crisfield to Salisbury and other places where they can find larger grocery stores. Reedville, Virginia has very little to offer in terms of shopping. The island has only one small grocery store, but they do have an ice cream shop that caters to tourists, and they offer 65 flavors of soft serve ice cream. A doctor visits the health center once a week, and a helicopter is available to take the residents off to a hospital in Maryland from a helipad there on the small airfield. Rising sea levels are reclaiming some of the land on Tangier, and some of the fishing shacks don't exactly look what you call prosperous. And we said goodbye to Tangier and we're out on the Chesapeake Bay again, where we saw a fishing boat out there trying to catch something, and the more pelicans than I'd ever seen in one place were flying around the boat trying to share in the catch. But as it turned out, the fishermen pulled up their nets and found nothing. So they'll have to try again. Back close to Reedville, we started seeing more pleasure craft and homes, both grand and humble, along the shore. And then soon we found ourselves back at the dock, and we were time to start the next leg of our trip. Then we decided to explore more of what was known as Virginia's Northern Neck. Our first stop was Colonial Beach, where we spent the night along the shores of the Potomac River. On the other side of the river is the shore of Maryland. Colonial Beach exceeded any of our expectations. We saw lots of pretty sights there, pretty homes, and we spent the night at the River Edge Inn. If you ever go to Colonial Beach, we highly recommend that. And then here are some of the scenes from the town. It was not a busy day there that day. There was almost nobody in sight. But it appears that the town can get quite busy during the tourist season. The Black Pearl looks to be like one of the local night spots. Lots of beautiful homes sitting there along the beach, and some humble homes like this one up for sale. The trash cans along the beach are all decorated, each in its own motif. Next, we were off to another area of the Northern Neck, headed west, and went to Caledon State Park. Became a state park only last year. A beautiful green area, lots of giant oak trees, black oaks that have conjoined trunks at the base and soar very high up into the sky. A beautiful area, and we had a grand time there exploring one of the footpaths. Several of the trees had pockets at the base in their roots to house some of the well, capture some water and provide a place for concealment for creatures like this giant spider. There were lots of fallen timber in the forest and to provide habitat for little creatures and large, and lots of ferns. Well, all in all, we had a grand time on our brief vacation. I hope you enjoyed this brief tour, and we'll look forward to our next trip, and we'll take more pictures and more video and share it with you when we return.